The subject of this video is critical perspectives, and it's going to be about one of my favorite topics, analyzing literature. The essential question for your notes is, how can learning about literary theory and criticism help us understand and analyze the meaning of a text? Now, I know that this sounds really boring, but if you hang in there, I promise that you will never read another book in the same way again, and you can thank me later. To begin with, there are two terms that you need to be familiar with. The first one is literary theory. This is using theories and ideas to understand the meaning of a literary text. So we are going to go beyond just understanding it and being aware of the characters, the actions, the events, those types of things. But we want to see what those things mean, what they represent. The second term that you need to know is literary criticism. This is just the art of evaluating or analyzing works of literature with knowledge, and we're going to be looking at that knowledge a little bit later in this video. Reading critically sounds complicated, but it's not. This is the easiest way that I can break it down for you, and honestly, I wish that somebody had done the same thing for me back when I was in college. First thing that you have to do is identify the theory or ideas that you're going to use. This is the knowledge that I talked about earlier. Then you need to think of those as a set of glasses that you're going to put on and use to read the text. The next few slides are going to show you three different perspectives or points of view to use when you're reading critically. The first critical perspective is post-colonial. This has to do with the colonization of one group of people by another group of people. And you know from your history classes that this has happened countless times. So when you're using this critical perspective, you need to ask yourself the following questions while reading. Which characters have been affected by imperialism, and how have they been affected by it? You also need to try to identify different attitudes and perspectives in the text and make sure that you look at the colonizer and the colonized when you're doing that. You might want to focus on one character and see how they're trying to represent his or her culture. You might also want to identify the antagonist and see what it is that they represent. And finally, when you're using this post-colonial critical perspective, you're going to be examining slavery, immigration, or issues of race in the text when you're reading it. The second critical perspective is the feminist perspective, and yes, this has everything to do with gender. So the first question that you might ask yourself while you're reading a text using this perspective is, how does the text show women? For example, does it show them as capable or incapable? Does it show them as powerful or powerless? Think also, how would somebody who is the opposite gender have written that text? While you're thinking about that, also think about how literature has established the stereotypical gender roles that we're familiar with today. When you're focusing on your text, do you see any stereotypical gender roles in some of the characters? Also, think about how women define themselves in that text that you're reading. And finally, how does male dominance affect the women in that text? The third critical perspective is the Marxist perspective. This has to do with the theories and ideas of Karl Marx. Put simply, he believed that the struggle between the different social classes has been a major shaping force in history. And he also believed that there should eventually be a classless society, so that's a society with no social classes. If you're using this perspective to read a text, then you're going to be looking at how the characters' social statuses are represented in that text. You're also going to look at how one class supports another class. Look at the characters. How are they portrayed? Are they shown as individuals, or are they shown as part of something else? And what is that something? Look at how money is an issue in the text. Also, look at the historical forces that might have shaped that particular text. And finally, look at the role that human nature plays in the society of that text. So reading critically doesn't have to be hard and complicated. All you have to do is figure out which lenses you're going to wear while you're reading a text, and then think about the issues and ask yourself some of the questions that you saw in this video while reading. That's it.